From Mid-Ohio, we're back for more IndyCar, the ABN Champ Car World Series, wrapping up practice from the sports car course. I'm Rick James with Liv Hayward by my side. Liv, welcome to the shores of Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, I'd say I'm glad to be here. I think I've made my opinions clear on how this track is, especially in relation to the Mobile Motorsports Park. But there is always one thing that can make any race a banger, and that is the inclement weather. And we do have a weather front rolling in from the south. It is not a matter of if, but more when it is going to hit this track and whether we get to see our first use of the Firestone wet tyres in ABN competition. I can't wait.
Right in Morrow County in central Ohio is where you'll find the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in a little township by the name of Troy. And if you ever do get the chance, come and visit. It is one of the great classic road courses of American motorsport. Do yourself a favor and visit the Oak Tree Bend and the rest of Mid-Ohio. It's absolutely beautiful. We've got Liv, another 3 minutes in this practice session, and then a whole 15 minutes worth of qualifying where the weather could change drastically, and the beginning of qualifying could be drastically different to the end of qualifying.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure on when that system is going to hit. We think that qualifying and the start of the race should avoid that storm, but in that back half of the race, it is going to be very, very tricky to manage, and especially for drivers who don't have a live spotter up on the stand. They're just going to have to feel it out with what they see on the aero screen and how the tyres are feeling. What I will say as a piece of advice, if we do get some weather hitting, because I got to experience that on Monday night at this very track in official competition, the slick tyres, if they are warm and if you've got them in the window, they can last for a surprisingly long time as the weather starts to fall. And it's all about making sure you don't pull the trigger too early onto those wet weather tyres, while still taking the signal of when you need to bail and get yourself some extra grip.
So let's get back into Mid-Ohio again. I want to know your feelings because I don't know this story. Why do you not like Mid-Ohio?
My opinion is always just it has a lot of similar characteristics to Barber Motorsports Park. But I just prefer the track down in Alabama. I don't know what to say. I really like the flow of it. I love the roller coaster section. And I mean, this track does have some similar characteristics down at China Beach. And of course, that tricky final carousel section. But yeah, I do prefer Barber, but I've got to say, after getting to experience track with the nerves of the weather involved, it really does kick it into a new light, and I am very excited to see how these drivers handle it. Heading just to the end of practice now, it is John Hayden making his first start of the season, currently at the top of the board, Rudy Valentin in second, and championship leader Nicholas Pressy in third place, looking to extend that gap to Sawyer and Ryan.
I want to take a look at those points later as well. We'll bring them up later, but I'm also interested in what we're going to see as far as fuel strategy. I'm not sure if you covered it already, but as qualifying begins here, we got 15 minutes of qualifying, plenty of time for drivers to put in a fast lap. But let's dig in a little bit to the stats of today's race, because it's, relatively speaking, could be quick for these drivers, just depending on how they choose to run their fuel strategy.
Yeah, I would say that we're expecting stints to be around the 14 lap range. You could do some fuel save to try and stretch it from a 3-stop to a 2-stop. Although I think the main criticism of that would be that it's such a short pit lane here. The time loss delta is maybe only 20 seconds, 25 seconds. And so you can really make up that time going full push if you want to. I think the main actual answer is going to be whether drivers choose to save some fuel so that they can try and extend the stint into that rain and make a single stop onto the wets at the right time, rather than have to make an early stop for another set of slicks and then transfer onto the wet weather tyres. We are just finishing up the outlaps in qualifying. Of course, new tyres being introduced for this car recently means that it'll take a little bit more time to get them up to temperature. And I think that is going to be a big factor as we get going to watch the first qualifying lap here from John Hayden. Again, first start of the season for him. And so we'll get to see exactly what he's capable of. Has, of course, made starts in previous seasons. Of those 11, has started on from the pole twice and has taken one checkered flag home with him. So expectations high for the number 97. Let's see what he can do for Ascent Racing.
Couple of newcomers to our racing here this season. John Hagen was fastest in practice. We'll see what kind of time he puts in. 11 starts in the ABN, 2 poles, 1 win, and 4 top 5s. Now, we'll see what he can put together, but there's so much left of qualifying here. So looking at the parameters for tonight's event, we're running 49 laps at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. How many pit stops can we realistically expect on a tank of fuel?
Again, two or three, depends how you want to run it. Hayden across the line sets a 8.9 for his first lap. These tyres will improve over these next couple laps, so watch out for long qualifying stints here. But yeah, it's going to be splitting the race into thirds almost, maybe trying to extend it to make that a possibility, but of course keeping an eye on what the radar says, especially for the last chance the drivers hop into the cars for the race. They'll have one last chance to peek at that weather radar and see exactly how long they think it'll be before the showers start to hit. We'll see if Hayden can find an improvement to try and start further up the field and make his job a little bit easier. So far, of course, we've got a lot of drivers on the alternates, but some drivers choosing to start on the primary tyre. Each driver forced to use 2 compounds in the race unless it does get declared wet by race officials. And that's not a guarantee, so you don't want to work out if we do stay dry here. When do you run those primaries? Do you start on them, or do you take them at the end when the track could be a little bit more slippery than you would like? Big improvement from Hayden. Top of the ball by 8/10 right now, but of course drivers expecting to find a little bit more pace as we come through. We'll see if Bryce Sosa has an answer. No, but Matt Schlosser does have an answer, of course. The 04 with his first victory in Champ Car competition last time out with a great finish at Kentucky. Looking to impress once again after a rough road course at Sonoma on debut.
It's weird to think that we're only a third of the way through this qualifying session. Not even a third of the way through this qualifying session. Me being the impatient race car fan that I am, I'm thinking to myself, 6-7 minutes should be enough to put a couple of laps in. But once you've got that first set of laps in there, I mean, really, where is the improvement going to come, especially with open qualifying, because there's no guarantee that you're going to improve on your time from there. Surely after a couple of laps, you know what you've got. Or with the ever-changing weather, realistically, what are drivers going to look to improve on their second or third runs?
Hey, let's have that little bit more confidence in those additional runs. This first run as well will give drivers an idea of how long it takes for the tyres to get into an operating window. It'll be, again, we've seen lap 3 from Matt Schlosser be his fastest so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for another one here. And then once you start to see that fall off in this first run, I think that's when you pit, you get a fresh set of tyres, and you use that data that you've gathered to really focus on tyre prep in the first couple of laps and really nail it in on that one flying lap for everything. I think that's what we're going to see in those second runs. They'll know when the tyres will be at their peak, more or less, and that is when they'll target.
9 minutes left to play in this qualifying session. What round is this? We've run so many races this season, Liv. I couldn't even tell you what round. 13
unlucky
of 20.
Match loss there, goes out wide, and this is probably a great time to pull into pit lane. He's already right at the road, and he'll get a fresh, clean
Educate
set
me here
of
on these
alternates there.
on these rules, Liv. I need some help here. So what happens compared to the ovals if you bin the race car? If you tow to the pits, you're out of qualifying. Is that right?
Tow, you are out of qualifying. If you bring it back around under your own power, even if you have to then hop into a spare car in the pit lane, you are allowed to go back out and continue your qualifying effort. But you'll be slightly heavier on fuel in all likelihood, so you might struggle to find the same pace that you had before.
Well, let's see what happens. Genuinely, so with the ever-changing road course, again, with the weather's going to change everything. I feel like I'm making predictions for things that aren't going to matter, because when it comes to that weather, everything that we're going to say before the rain means absolutely nothing. What happened?
Mo Perry.
Oh, look at that! Is that Mo Perry with the right front? What happened?
Let's have a look at where things went wrong for Mo here. Just a little bit wide through the carousel. Tried to cut it back in too aggressively. And the problem here is that he's right after pit entry.
The fact that he keeps it moving, I'm surprised he doesn't have to tow in the first place, but Mohammed Perry is going to have an incredibly difficult time getting that race car back around.
I'll say that's not what Mo stands for.
Is that not? You know what? What is it, Morris?
Morpheus.
What does the? Is it Morpheus? All right.
Morpheus.
You know what? That's all right.
Honestly, I understand you not guessing that one first time.
No, I'll tell you what. If you tell me your name is Mo, I'm gonna guess your name is it's short for Muhammad, Morris. I don't know what else is Mo. Maybe chat can tell us whatever else Mo is short for, but well, Mo's not a Monique, but Mo could be short for Monique as well. I don't know. You know what's hilarious? I knew it didn't stand. I knew it wasn't short for Muhammad, but whatever. Colin McDonough also. Well, Colin McDonough decides to take the Mohammed Perry route, and he's going to go slam it into the tires as well, except this one's on the left front. Is Colin McDonough even still running? How do you even drive the car after something like that?
It looks like he has brought it back to pit lane now, so his session, he's going to start from the tail end of the field. And you can see how loose the car gets over the crest of China Beach for Tucker Sawyer, who is currently third in the standings. And again, big snap of oversteer. This is going to be the end of this set of alternates. And I think we'll see Tucker bring it back towards pit lane here, or at the very least try and pull them off for another attempt. Remember, Tucker Sawyer, ailing after a few rough rounds in the championship, trails Nicholas Pressey by... let's have a look at the points real quick as Tucker pulls into pit lane. It is a big gap, 72 points between Sawyer and Pressey. And in fact, Christina Ryan in the number 80 has jumped in 2 points ahead of the 19. So they both have a lot of ground to make up on Nicholas Pressey here. And this qualifying session so far is going to do it, but currently down on pit road while Pressey's still out circulating and going to try and find a little bit more pace in that number 94.
I'm just astonished that there's a 70-point gap between first and second. Now, granted, we've got, next week, the US 500, which I think is going to be worth double points because it's one of those extra long races. And then we have that month's break. But, yeah, just at this stage of the championship with what is 7 races to go, that's quite... That's quite the advantage. There you see in the bottom left corner of your screen, July 9. Next week, the US 500. We're going to take a break for approximately 5 weeks. Come back to mid-August with the Grand Prix of Seneca Lake. The week after that, Montreal. Practice your French. And then September 3rd. So look at that. We get a week's break, and then September 3rd on the Nashville Oval as well. Liv, do you speak French?
I do not speak French. But I
think we should do that entire broadcast in French.
Run to the finish line after the summer break. Only 6 races left after next week's US 500. And so these drivers will, especially Tucker Sawyer, needs to work out his oval racing and take a strong result at Michigan to try and take the fight to Nicholas Pressey. We know Christina can be strong on the ovals, but Sawyer needs to try and find that next level if he wants a shot at the Season 7 title. Is it Season 7? I think Season 7.
I have no idea. You're asking the wrong person. You think Tucker Sawyer speaks French?
I could not tell you.
Maybe John Hagen
we might
speaks
just
French.
ask him in a few minutes.
I'll tell you what, if John Hagen ends up winning this poll, that's the first thing we'll ask him in that interview booth, is we'll ask him, John Hagen, do you speak French? Who's this? Rudy Valentin. He's 5th. Is it being scored as 5th right now?
He's now down to 6th place, but I've pulled
There
to
it
just
is.
look at what he's qualifying this car on. A set of primary compound
The black
tyres,
tire.
the only driver
Right.
in the top 10 currently going for the primary compound. And he's put all his eggs in this basket because he does not have time to get a set of alternates up to temperature now. Running 6th fastest, but can find improvements all the way to the checker, I'd say. The problem is still 8/10 behind John Hagen.
But, I mean, if he's doing this on the harder, slower compound, imagine what he's actually going to put together when the race gets going. I'm excited to see what Rudy Valentin's going to produce in the rest of this competition. That's
Well, the
pretty good.
He's got to do it in the second stint of the race. He's going to start on this set of tyre. And he's got to be careful to not get swallowed up by Bryce Saucer, George Ward, Bren Roberts behind, who are all starting on the alternates, and they're going to be able to leapfrog quite easily. He pulls in pit lane. He might try and go for a set of ults here, but I think he'll only have time for one more lap after the crew get this swapped out. Matt Schlosser, I saw, did have a crash and is now down on pit lane. So John Hayden with no pressure right now. It's up to Tucker Sawyer and maybe Nicholas Pressey to try and challenge the 97, who is looking for a pole position to open up his Season 7 campaign.
Two minutes left to play. It takes, what, about 1:30 to get around here coming out of the pits. 1:08 if you are moving at speed. So, who are we looking at there? The 6th place, Rudy Valentin. He is out on the track. He's going to get one more lap, but he's still on the black alternate tires. So he's trying to put the fastest lap possible on the primary, not the softer option. 90 seconds to go in the qualifying session. I'm riding on board with John Hagen, who has nothing to lose from the first position. Tucker Sawyer, Eli Sasek tied down to the 100th of a second. Well, that's changed now. Looks like Nick Pressey just went second, 1:08.72. So he is 0.2 off of the pole time. Matt Schlosser running in third. 60 seconds remain in qualifying live. John Hagen still at the top.
Yeah, and crucially, with where Pressey is on the track, he'll have the opportunity for 2 more laps, including this one. He'll get back to the line before the checkered flag comes out, and so we'll get to see what he can produce here and whether he can challenge Hagen for the pole position. What I'd say is that Tucker Sawyer especially needs a response. We've seen Tristina slot through the field in these long races, but Tucker Sawyer normally likes to front run them and needs to make sure he's in contention if he wants to try and close down spots in the championship, as Pressey goes past a Mo Perry, just trying to stay out of the way of your championship leader right now.
So this will wrap up qualifying. I can't see anybody mounting a charge to knock John Hagen off the top unless Nicholas Pressey pulls something out of the hat here. He comes out of the final corner, the Brooklyn Pilot, looking to beat 1:08.54. He crosses the line and will not be 1:08.54. So this is the final opportunity if Nick Pressey is going to put in a pole lap. Clock expires. John Hagen is your provisional pole sitter. Nick Pressey's not going to put anything else together here unless, well, we'll see. We'll see. He's on a flyer, but it doesn't look like there's any more mounting challenges here. Tucker Sawyer looking to get into the top 3 as well, and he's got just over $120 to do it. Sliding the back end around out of that final corner, looking to improve from the 4th position. He crosses the line and 1:09.39. Good enough to stay put in 4th, Liv.
Yeah, not quite enough. We saw Pressey set up coming through the carousel for the final lap, but there's gravel on the outside of Thunder Valley there. That's going to hurt the run through, and he's got to find 0.2 of a second on John Hagen to try and take this pole position. He's given it everything through the carousel and out towards the line. but you can tell the car isn't responding. He goes off track. He's not going to complete this one. I think he was a few tenths down on what he would have needed anyway, so that is going to be qualifying over for the field. It's going to be John Hagen who takes the pole position with Nicholas Pressey starting alongside, and then Matt Schlosser and Tucker Sawyer on row number 2. That is going to be a strong fight between the rookie and much more experienced pilot in the 19.
Drag John Hagen in here and find out if he speaks French.
Right, we're about to be in just a moment.
Back with you and our 13th round of the ABN Champ Car World Series. Trying to have a word with our points leader. Our pole sitter, John Hagen. Trying to see what we can get from that pole lap. Liv, any word on Hagen? Is he available for that or no?
Word from team is that he's currently AFK. I would imagine maybe doing Timmy Ragnan. So dating final preparation.
So what you're saying is John Hagen hates us and doesn't want to talk to the fans?
No, I mean he might be making some last minute preparations before getting onto the grid for the race.
All right, you heard it here first. John Hagen hates us and he doesn't want to talk to the fans. So we'll talk about somebody else here. We got a 5-minute warm up here. We're about $150 through this warm up. Let's to get serious for just a moment. 49.
Hang on, John Hagen does not hate us.
John Hagen does not hate us. Is he finally going to talk to us? John Hagen, Rick James, and Liv Hayward up in the booth. The question that's burning on my mind and been burning since qualifying started. Do you speak French?
No.
Okay.
Oui, that's all I got for you.
All right, good enough for me. That pole lap impressed me because I had no idea you could wheel an Indy car to begin with. I've seen you win races in stock cars, in V8 supercars, but never these turbocharged spaceships. So now, are you going to be able to back up a race performance to match the pole performance?
We're going to see. Rain's always a wild card. I'm not going to lie to you. I've done one singular rain race on iRacing, and this is the first time I've ever... I bought this track last night at like 11 p.m. So it's a whole lot of unknowns for me. I have no idea. I have the general principles of how to race it in the rain, but we'll see how it goes, you know?
So technically speaking, how are you at Mid-Ohio? Is it a track that you would say you're good at, just given that you've had it for less than 12 hours?
I'm okay at it. There's definitely some spots I'm still learning. So I definitely don't lack the confidence, but I also know there's room to grow.
Well, hopefully we see you. I mean, you're starting first, so hopefully, you can't really grow anywhere from there. I hope you don't fall. Hopefully we talk to you at the end of the race, man. Have fun out there.
Thank you, Rick.
Less than 2 minutes to go in the warm-up, Liv. Tongue in cheek, turn number 1 is going to be half a disaster. If it's you and you're stuck in the middle of this pack, what really can you do to avoid getting caught up in this first lap?
I think the most important thing is just to make sure you have the start nice and clean. Once you're off and rolling, you can check up if there's cars having issues ahead. If you are the one going slowly on the start, there's nothing you can do to stop someone running to the back of you. So it's just all about making sure you focus on your start, deal with the situation from there, and I'd say once you're out of China Beach, past that long back straightaway, and start to settle into a rhythm, and have a quick look at what the rest of the race will hold, as we have a look down to our starting grid for tonight's race.
We just talked to him. He doesn't speak French, but hopefully he's going to be speaking win. John Hagen starting on the inside of row number 1 next to our points leader, Brooklyn's Nick Pressy. In that second row, we're going to have rookie Matt Schlosser next to championship hopeful Tucker Sawyer, doing everything he can do to get this one together. Big Pink George Ward and Eli Sasek going to be starting fifth and sixth, respectively. And in that next row, we're going to have Big Bryce Saucier, Rudy Valentin, another rookie who's going to be starting in 8th on the outside of row number 4. Coming up 9th and 10th, Brent Roberts, Jesse Francisco, another rookie in that Blue Angels paint scheme. He's rounding out the top 10. 11th and 12th, one Carmen Sienna and Christina Ryan, who is 70 points behind Nick Pressy coming into this round. She's got to do everything she can from 12th. Starting 13th and 14th, Elias Flores and everybody's favorite Australia. I said Australian again. Liv, help me out here. Craig Yor, is he Australian or from New Zealand?
I think Craig Yor is Australian. I could be wrong.
Okay, which one? And then Jason Duckworth there. Well, Craig Yor apparently starting on the inside of row number 7 as well. Jason Duckworth next to him. Let's move on. We've got Evan Eisenman and then Morpheus Perry, not Muhammad as I called him twice earlier, but I'll probably screw that up for the rest of the race as well. Starting 15th and 16th as the cars start to appear on the grid. Then it's going to be Colin McDonough rounding out our field, starting 17th out of 17 combatants for our 13th race at Mid-Ohio. 49 laps. It can be very, very quick. If you have a great start, it could be an extremely long afternoon if you get caught up early. This first lap is going to be cagey, cautious. Hopefully, the drivers give each other the real estate they need to survive the first lap. Revs rise, getting ready to go. Green flag is out at Mid-Ohio. Let's go racing from Lexington. Everybody scrambles down into the first corner trying to avoid contact. Leaders make it through clean and green going through the field. Do they all survive turn number 1? No, they don't. John Hagen, the pole sitter, goes around. Nick Pressy leading out of the keyhole now. John Hagen trying to get it back together. Tucker Sawyer in second. 2 wide for 3rd and 4th. Bryce Saucier goes off the track. He comes back on the track. Everybody except John Hagen survives the first couple corners.
Yeah, and I think the inexperience, not having been around for a while, just wasn't ready for that standing start. So tricky compared to the rolling starts that this series would be used to. And you saw Pressy just completely skunked him on that start. Flew past and then turn 1. The pressure had just got to him. Hayden has to come from the back of the field all the way back to the front now.
That's going to be such a long piece of work for John Hagen. Really, he can make up a lot of positions from here. He may benefit, but it's going to be such a long afternoon for him. Nick Pressy leading at the front. Jesse Francisco sitting just ahead of Brent Roberts. You're looking at the, 7th and 8th? 9th and 10th, excuse me. Francisco now trailing Carmen Sienna after that first lap. Pressy leads, Tucker Sawyer in second, Matt Schlosser in third. Further on back, Evan Eisenman, Bryce Saucier, and a couple of cars bundled up, trying to battle for 15th.
Yeah, very close fight in this second pack. You also, of course, see John Hagen trying to start to file through the field here, but just has a bit of a traffic jam. Mo Perry gets into the gravel on the outside of the keyhole, gets around. Hagen now looking for the move on teammate Evan Eisenman. I'm sure the 66's going to let that one go a little bit easier. But up at the front of the field, 6 cars broken away. Christina Ryan already on a little bit of an island in 7th place. But up at the front, it is still pressure from Pressy, Sawyer, and Matt Schlosser. As we look at the battle for what is 8th place right now. Drivers went a little bit wide. You see the gravel already kicked out in the grass on the outside of Thunder Valley.
2 laps in, already a couple of drivers having to do some heavy lifting. Saucier, Hagan now trading positions. Nick Pressey sets a purple lap, 109.38. He's quickest, and the top 12 drivers all putting in personal bests. Drivers have room to breathe. They're now out there where they can express themselves and their racing line without the fear of making contact with other pilots.
Rewind, nearly.
Back, look at this, into the key hole. That's Colin McDonough, John Hagan, Evan Eisenman, and everybody else that's brave enough to get into that one, Liv. McDonough really going for it really early.
Yeah, I remember both these drivers, Saucier and Hagan, fighting through the field after getting caught up early. They're now fighting with each other and just holding each other up, really, through China Beach. And Hagan, just not comfortable on the outside line, is going to let Saucier take it even further. While we have the chance, let's have a look back at that start for John Hagan. Let's just see exactly where it went wrong for the pole sitter on that standing start. Oh, and he actually gets into
he
the
spun
wall.
the tire straight away. Just no control from the word go. Into turn number 1, way too much wheel on cold tires. On those red alternates too. So now from the pole, all the life in the tires is being wasted trying to sort through this field. John Hagan finds himself in 15th, 2/10 outside the top 14, where Bryce Saucier finds himself, and there's a battle for the podium. Liv, Matt Schlosser trying to defend the attack. No, I'm sorry. This is George Ward and Eli Sasek for 4th.
Yeah, and what I'd say about that start, I thought someone would have tapped him around after such a slow start, but he got it on the wall, stayed out of the way, and it was just that the tires were so flash heat on the surface from that initial wheel spin. The moment he asked for anything into turn number 1, they just didn't respond the way he expected. Car goes around, it goes from bad to worse for John Hagan. Still stuck behind Bryce Saucier, currently in a battle for 13th place that Cradior is starting to slide back towards. But here, George Ward doing a great job fending off Eli Sasek for now, but a little bit deep in the keyhole. Is going to focus on the exit, use a little bit of push to pass to try and build that momentum. What I will say, sky still looks awfully bright right now as we get towards 1:40 local time. We're expecting the storm to hit in about half an hour, but as always, forecasts can be a little bit inconsistent.
Evan Eisenman fell off the racetrack. He runs in the 17th position. George Ward finds himself 0.3 of a second ahead of Eli Sasek, who finds himself half a second ahead of Rudy Valentin in the 6th position. Craig Yor, Bryce Saucier, John Hagan, all bundled together by 0.4 of a second between them. Pressey and Sawyer at the top, trading quickest laps. 5 laps, only 5 laps into this 49-lap competition, Liv. There's action from front to back.
Yeah, it has been fantastic racing so far. I'll say credit to Rudy Valentin for holding on and gaining spots on those primary tyres. The longer this first stint goes on, the more he's going to gain, and then he can try and make an attack on the alternates later on in the race. John Hagan just has no way around the traffic ahead of him. It's a very difficult track to pass here, even with the help of push to pass, and this is where he's really ruined that standing start. 17 seconds off Nicholas Pressey, who lined up just a few feet behind him on the grid.
So Pressey leads by half a second over Tucker Sawyer. He's got that locked up. Big Pink George Ward trying to run away from Eli Sasek with Valentin now creeping through. John Hagan set back to 14th. He's trying to get around Bryce Saucier in 13th, while Colin McDonough struggling to keep that race car moving on the tarmac, briefly going off the racetrack. So drivers struggling. John Hagan not advancing as quickly as I thought he would. Now within half a second to Craig Yor, and at the front of this race, Nick Pressey, 0.8 of a second ahead of Tucker Sawyer. Hagan still on the move, Liv.
Yeah, doing great work, and it's because of a mistake from Bryce Saucier here. I think gets caught out by Craig Yor, but almost spins it coming down the hill, overshoots the next right-hander. And John Hayden just slides his way through. Craig, you're now also past, or in the way of Bryce. So John Hayden's gotten past the Australian now, as we get back to our live pictures. But yeah, just a mistake from Bryce Sosa opened the door for John Hayden, and he's got to focus on being as consistent as possible, letting drivers make mistakes at what is a very difficult track to try and cut back through and give himself a shot at the podium once again.
Where is he now? In the 12th position, so credit to John Hagan. He's come up from 18th quite quickly, only 7 laps in. He's now cracked the top dozen. Nick Pressey, I'm impressed by the leader, Pressey. He's pulled away to half a second, and it ebbs and flows from half a second to 3/4, so on and so forth between Pressey and Sawyer. I think we've reached almost just a settling point in this race, Liv, where it's obvious that drivers have broken into single file patterns as well, but I think after these first 8 laps we can certainly see for lack of a better phrase, the field has been sorted. The field has been sifted through. We have the best, we have the rest, and we have obviously John Hagan, who is supposed to be with the best, now trying to work his way through the rest. So with the rain that we expect to come, I don't think this is going to stay this way for much longer.
No, and it's all right as we start to get settled. We're going to hit that first pit cycle, and it'll be about when you make the call to try and clear some traffic. Does Hagan go for an aggressive undercut to try and get past people? You give up the current track position. If the rain hits at a bad time, you give up maybe a full pit stop on the racetrack. But if you can time it right, you can make a huge gain. And one thing I did want to mention, I pulled it up on the graphics here, Nicholas Pressey holds the lead from Tucker Sawyer, but it's not been done for free. He's already used more than a minute of his pushed pass allocation. Tucker Sawyer just 5 seconds burned in the first 9 laps, and while it makes sense to use it while the track's still dry when you can get the most out of it, it's still a lot of advantage that Tucker Sawyer now has. They can try and sprint during that pit stop cycle, as John Hayden gets past Jason Duckworth, has a teammate right ahead here on the primary tyre, and so I'd imagine once he gets to the back of the 99 he won't put up too much of a fight at all.
1/5 of the way through this race. No, less than that. I'm sorry. I can't do math. We're almost 1/5 of the way through this race. Nick Pressey still leads by 0.6 of a second. The battle for 10th is on as one of the Ascent cars, that red Ascent car of John Hagan, is right up the back of Elias Flores. No mistakes can be made at this point. Flores trying to hold on to 10th with Jesse Francisco just out of reach. John Hagan needs to plan this move accordingly, and hopefully Flores doesn't make it too difficult, because we know the speed that the 99 carries, Liv.
Yeah, and it's the difference in tyre compounds here. The alternates have just so much more grip in these conditions. I imagine Hayden just trying to set up a push pass overtake the next time, maybe into the keyhole here, in fact. He's going to go for a look. And is Flores going to make it easy for the teammate? I don't know if Hayden gave him a choice there. Keeps him pinched on the outside. Flores maybe now under pressure from Jason Duckworth. No. But they're going to file through towards China Beach, and that is back into the top 10 for John Hayden, although not for long. Flores is going to try and push back. Slots back in. And now Jesse Francisco next up for your pole sitter. Meanwhile, at the front of your field, Hayden, no! Spins around. Keeps it out of the barrier, but back down to 14th once again.
That could very well be a podium. Liv, that could be his podium, done and dusted.
Also a spin for Tucker Sawyer, it looks like, as well. Has dropped him well off the back of Nicholas Pressey. Let's have a look at what's happened to the 19 while we were watching.
So Tucker Sawyer, coming through the final corners, is going to hit that rumble strip. There it is. He just spins around, and a much-needed respite for Nick Pressey. So now it quite literally is Nick Pressey's race to lose. He has a 5-second advantage over Tucker Sawyer headed into pit stops. We said drivers are going to be in approximately when? About 15 to 20 laps?
Maybe in the next couple of laps, actually.
Okay. So coming into pit stops, then it is Nick Pressey's game. He's got a 5-second gap back to Matt Schlosser, let alone Tucker Sawyer, and then Bren Roberts having issue. Carmen Sienna also going around as well. Liv drivers are just losing it all over the place. There goes Bren Roberts. Is that Hagan? Was that John Hagan colliding with Bren Roberts?
It was, and he has a fast repair if he needs it, and he very well might here as Bren Roberts toes back to the pit lane. Chaos in the last couple of laps, and John Hayden really struggling to move back through now. At the front of the field, still no pit stops being made as we head onto lap number 12. Tucker Sawyer has regained the second position as maybe a small mistake from Matt Schlosser in that last lap. But now the gap's 5 seconds, and that push pass advantage starts to mean a little bit less when Pressey is so far up the road here. But a ton of pressure further back as Rudy Valentin now trying to use those primary compound tires as the alts fall off. You see the brake glow into China Beach. Eli Sasek keeps the inside, keeps Valentin pinched away, and defends for now. I think this is going to have to be a move in the cycle here. But Valentin, if it stays dry, has now taken the slower tire for a stint. He could run alternates all the way home now.
They ain't staying dry. I'll put a couple dollars on that it's not going to stay dry.
I can't look at the radar because I'm on broadcast view. You're the one that gets all the information on that one.
I'll look at the radar. It ain't staying dry in this piece. I'm telling you right now, the rain is going to come. It's what sim time we're looking at approximately what 3
right now.
Quarter to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's right. So in about half an hour sim time, expect 100% precipitation.
Ooh, okay.
So it takes what? That's going to be approximately 30 laps from now.
Yeah,
so
that'll be about lap. I'd say about lap 35 to 40. We're gonna have
so
rain.
with 15 laps to go. Yeah, with 15 laps to go.
How long do you
expect
stay on
that
dries?
rain. Expect that rain. That precipitation with 15 to go, that's going to change absolutely everything. So I'm telling you, what happens now does not matter. I'll tell you something else why it doesn't matter, because coming to the end of this race, you make your mistakes now. Don't make your mistakes when it's raining. Everybody else is going to make mistakes when it's raining. If you can stay tight and put in the fastest laps possible while it's raining, you can make up for the mistakes that you've made now. So while drivers are now coming into the pits, Tucker Sawyer, Rudy Valentin is in. This is where drivers like Bren Roberts, Mo Perry, Colin McDonough, John Hagan, especially John Hagan, go fast now, don't spin when it's raining.
Yeah, and honestly, I think part of it is to try and be ahead of people by the time the rain hits, because the danger would be if someone spins ahead of you, there's nothing to do about it. And speaking of a spin, Rudy Valentin on pit exit goes around. Just maybe a bit too heavy on the limiters. He can get a penalty for a pit exit violation there. We'll see if that pops up in the next couple of moments. But a huge mistake for Rudy Valentin on the way out of pit lane. Let's get another look at that one and see exactly what went wrong for the number 78.
I'll tell you exactly what happened, Liv. Cold tires. It's the exact same thing that happened to John Hagan. These drivers are ballistically quick, but they didn't account for what's going to happen when you put your foot down on cold tires. The top 4 are in, by the way. Nick Pressey, Matt Schlosser, George Ward, Eli Sasek. Carmen Sienna, now in 5th. She has yet to pit, as have the rest of the top 10. Sienna's in. Jesse Francisco's in. Bryce Saucier's in. Jason Duckworth. All eyes on car 73 will stay out. Nick Pressey comes in and out with the lead. Jason Duckworth moves into the 2nd position, 15 laps in of the scheduled 49. Pressey has fresh tires and retains that 5-second gap, Liv.
Yeah, and Tucker Sawyer has actually come out of the pits behind, or come around behind George Ward and Matt Schlosser, who had a bit of a quicker stop. I think Sawyer with a mistake maybe on the entry. And of course, Rudy Valentin comes out of the pit lane 5 seconds behind Eli Sasek, following that mistake on the exit, really struggling to make that time up. It's such a seemingly simple phase of the race, and yet it is so important for your running here, as John Hagan has actually had a spin down at turn number 1, and he's towed back to pit lane here.
I think Hagan's had enough for one evening. Genuinely think that's really been it, because he spins it and bins it as well. Liv, you want to tell me what the problem here is? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a C and it ends with old tires.
Well, I think the tires are brand new, it looks like, but they are not up to temperature. And yeah, losing the rear wing, you need another stop at that point. He is going to call it a night. An unfortunate end to his third career pole position. But as we focus forward, now Tucker Sawyer chasing down Matt Schlosser for what feels like the third time today. He's going to try and make this happen. Every car now making a pit stop in this race, so no one going to try and extend for a 2-stop, because they know the rain's coming. They know it'll be fruitless.
I think more importantly, this championship is being handed to Nicholas Pressey on a silver platter. John Hagan is one of the drivers that could really have knocked Nick Pressey off of that top spot. Tucker Sawyer also could have really changed the fortune of this championship by continuing to press Nick Pressey. Jesse Francisco doesn't want to win this race either. The mistakes happening before and after the pits, Liv, has to be a lack of awareness on worn tires and cold tires.
Yeah, it's just so tricky. It's a new tire model people are still learning, but it's just about taking it a little bit easier. Evan Eisman with a similar slide, but locks it down and keeps it out of the wall. Great car control there from Evan after the initial loss of the rear end. He keeps it in the race, although has some ground to make up and has some tires that definitely aren't going to be feeling too great on that number 66. Speaking 17. Of, I think we just saw another moment for him.
17 of 49 laps into this race. Taking a look here, you've got George Ward, who finds himself in the 7th position currently, and he's running behind Christina Ryan, looking to take her over for the 10th position. Ward's going to try and do it around the outside after the keyhole down the long straight, and he will overtake and clear Christina Ryan with no rebuttal. Carmen Sienna now fills up the space behind Ryan, but that is not for position. At the front, Nick Pressey still guiding Matt Schlosser. Is that for position?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Christina's just on the primaries. She's struggling to get up temperature, and car's just flying around right now. That's the difference in tire compound and how it can change after the pit cycle.
Okay, so that's Christina Ryan in the 7th position. Carmen Sienna in 8th. Bryce Saucier 2 seconds off of their pace. After that first stint, we don't have many close battles anymore. Now it's just going to be down to who can manage their equipment the best. So now that Nick Pressey realistically has no challengers, where's the challenge going to come from? Because Pressey's out there on an island by himself. Everybody else is fighting for 7th and 8th. Eisenman crashes again.
I mean, it'll come from the skies, I think, is the main thing. We'll have a look at Eisenman continuing to struggle in that number 66, and these are tires that are too hot at this point for the Ascent Racing driver.
I think we've had more drivers that have spun rather than drivers that haven't. More drivers have been involved in something than haven't. So Eisenman running where? 15th right now.
And that was the leader who just flew by, so he's now a lap down and gonna be in a little bit of traffic here for some of these other cars. This is the battle for 7th place. Carmen has gotten around Christina Ryan, and next up it is going to be Bryce Saucier. Bryce having used up a lot of push to pass at this point. Not much remaining. Pressey also using up most of it. They're trying to burn it before the rain comes. Craig Yore has used every last drop. And compare that to Tucker Sawyer. More than 3 minutes left. He's saving it for a rainy day. But I think that rainy day might be right now, because he stopped at the exit down the back straightaway, halfway down. I'm not quite sure how that's happened.
Is that Colin McDonough?
No, that's Tucker Sawyer.
Again, I'm beside myself now because this is so unlike Tucker. And clearly whatever's going on isn't something of his own doing, but he just pulls off to the side of the road, parks it.
That's technical failure. He's had to restart something and then get going, and it's cost him about 10 seconds.
That could very well cost him any chance at the championship now. It's going to be, what, 6 races to go when the checkered flag flies tonight. 7 races to go when the checkered flag flies tonight. It's going to be quite the difference for him. Chris Ryan, on the other hand, she is fighting the good fight against Bryce Saucier, and Saucier all up the back end of the black number 80 Twitch machine off that final corner. 20 laps underway now for Bryce and Christina, and that's 8th and 9th trying to swap.
Yeah, and again, Bryce using his final minute of pusher pass to try and complete this move. Wants the track position now. Remember, rain set to hit in maybe 20 minutes time, and once that happens, you won't want the extra power under the rear axle. Some drivers might put it into a fuel save map just to keep the throttle a little bit easier to hold on to. And so it really does make a lot of sense to burn push to pass now, get the moves done now, and then it'd be very difficult to make overtakes in the rain and just rely on defending your track position from there.
"21 laps in of our scheduled 49, quickly approaching halfway. 4/10 the gap between Christina Ryan and Bryce Saucier. Nick Pressey almost extending that to 6 seconds. Mo Perry briefly goes off the racetrack. He runs in the 14th position. Colin McDonough 8 seconds ahead. Colin McDonough 10 seconds behind Craig Yore. Meanwhile, into turn number 1. Wow, I thought that Christina Ryan had opened the door, but she's on the blacks. Bryce Saucier on the reds. Liv Bryce will clear Christina Ryan in the keyhole.
There's so many marbles on the outside. It doesn't matter. Bryce holds onto it with a superior grip. Does a great job flying around and uses that push pass to great effect. Down to 21 seconds, but he's got the track position. He can now focus towards Carmen Sienna ahead. And Christina Ryan just trying to ride out that primary stint that might not be necessary once the rain hits ultimately. We'll see what happens, but mind that will nullify all tyre rules if the track gets declared wet, or of course if you swap yourself onto a set of the Firestone wet weather compound.
Looking at the precipitation, Liv, we are 20 minutes away from the rain. So that's approximately 20 laps, and at about a minute 8, a minute 9 per lap. Again, we're on course with about 15 laps to go to send down that rain. We'll see what happens. Again, Nick Pressey's 6-second lead could mean absolutely nothing if he just throws the car away in the corner. If I'm Nick Pressey, I'm not playing with the rain, Liv. The second that I feel a drop on the windshield, on the windscreen, I'm in the pits.
No.
Game over. Put some wets on and bring this thing home.
No, the problem with a wet weather compound is that they've taken chunks out of the tread to give channels for the water to disperse. And when there's heavy standing water, that's crucial. It's the only thing that makes the tyre find any purchase. But when it's still mostly dry, when there's still a lot of surface to bite onto, you just get less surface area, which means less traction. And just going onto the wet weather tyres, you'll be running 6-7 seconds a lap off the pace. You'll be burning up those tyres, while drivers that are more patient and can tiptoe around on the warm slick tyres for a bit longer, they can be running at close to dry weather pace up until the sort of standing water starts to accumulate. And pulling the trigger too early can be just as dangerous as pulling it too late. And what I will ask, if you want to play Weatherman for a second, if you can pull up that radar and tell me what colour it is showing as on the radar, because that tells us how quickly it's going to go from dry running to wet.
Well, and that's what I'm looking at here. There's a 15-minute window where it's going to be humid from 2 to 2:15 sim time, which is 2 minutes away, the precipitation is going to go from 11 to 99%. In those 15 laps, there's going to be a quick jump in precipitation. Risking the slicks on a rubbered up, wet track is going to be a game that nobody wants to play here. So again, we're 15 minutes away from the rain. Drivers last pitted on lap 14. So we're also 2 or 3 laps away from these pit stops. So these next tires have to be dry, undoubtedly. There's no question that the next tires have to be dry, but I don't think there's any.
Honestly, I think you start fuel saving now. If you see that in the black box, you start to save some fuel because you want to try and extend this next stint into the wet weather crossover, or at least give yourself the option to. You want to try and save yourself pit stop if you can, but you have to be on the right tire at the right time. And it's going to be very tricky if your needle hits empty while you're unsure what the track's about to do. Do you go to the wets even if it's a bit too early? Or do you stay on the dries knowing that in a couple laps time you could be right back in? Because at that point you need the extra grip, you need those channels in the tread to disperse the water.
Halfway. As we cross the line, Nick Pressey 5.3 seconds ahead of second place Matt Schlosser. Eli Sasek half a second ahead of Rudy Valentin, who went around on cold tires. Rudy Valentin running on the reds. Eli Sasek also running on the red tires as well. Further on back, Colin McDonough, Mo Perry separated by half a second each. Colin McDonough on the reds, Mo Perry also on the reds, and everybody still with at least, at minimum, one more pit stop here. So we're 25 laps from the end. So it's 1, possibly 2, depending on the rain. With the race leader Nick Pressey, his lead to Matt Schlosser is shrinking, but I think Nick is also running a more conservative pace considering that pit stops are just a few laps away.
Yeah, and this is the problem Pressey has, that battle between Perry and McDonough. Right in front of him, gets checked up through the final corner here. McDonough now dies out of the way, goes 1 lap down, but still has Bren Roberts and Mo Perry up front. Pressey's last lap, because of that little incident, 11.2. Matt Schlosser went 1.3 seconds faster. He is gaining, and if he can cut through this track a bit more effectively, or make a pit stop before he gets there, he can bank that time save and be right back in the fight once again with Nicholas Pressey. And he's on the push pass. He wants to try and get close to him.
Second place, Matt Schlosser, 4.2 seconds and closing. See if we can bring up that push to pass time. I want to see if Nick Pressey has laid off the button, because in the first half of this race, he's used it quite a lot, and he still has used quite a lot of it. Almost 140 seconds of push to pass time. Schlosser is in that same boat. Eli Sasek, however, is not. Eli Sasek finds himself right now 8 seconds behind Matt Schlosser, with a third place to protect against Rudy Valentin. That rain is approximately 14 minutes away, so about 10 laps, if you will. Rudy Valentin is in. Rudy Valentin will be the first to break that barrier, and then here comes Tucker Sawyer, who's also in behind Valentin. Nick Pressey leading this race while the skies over Lexington get a bit dark.
Yeah, and this is the tricky point. You don't want to pit right now because you know that the rain is going to come right as this stint ends. And you have to make the call then of, do you go for the slicks and come back in when the track gets to you, or do you try and preempt it, go to the wet weather tires early and hope that the track comes back to you? Because if it doesn't, you're going to be running maybe 5-10 seconds off the pace in the dry conditions, and you're going to lose that margin in a matter of laps.
Inside the final 25, quickly approaching the final 20 laps to go. JD, Jason Duckworth, Christina Ryan, separated by 0.3 of a second. Valentin, Flores, Sawyer, Perry, Well, not Mo Perry, but down to Tucker Sawyer, everybody's watching this go on as well. So Christina Ryan leading the line from 7th on down to 11th with pit stops looming. 20 laps to go, not this time, but next time by, and the rain quickly approaching. Sienna's in. Sienna is in from 5th place, Liv. More drivers coming into the pits.
Yeah, I mean, this is the end of the tank. You don't really have a choice at this point. But this is why pitting early and not doing that fuel save can be so dangerous. Sawyer and Valentin both pit into this traffic, into a 5-car fight that they've just been held up in slightly as they get those tyres up to temperature. Now Tucker Sawyer tries to dispatch of Elias Flores. But he's got to go around the outside to do it. He's going to maybe go for a crossover. No, he's going to have to try and stick that into the marbles and the gravel and just doesn't get the run. And meanwhile, drivers like Carmen Senna had a bit more time to run in clean air. Obviously, she was a bit further behind, so pits and exits behind them. But for drivers like Nicholas Pressy now, who is into the pit lane, like Eli Sasek, who's still out on the racetrack, and in fact peels in now, they could jump ahead of this fight that we see, and Valentin could be left stranded.
Nick Pressy, Matt Schlosser, Eli Sasek, the top 3 all in the pits. George Ward will also join. Bryce Saucier, the 07, puts 2 right side tires into the grass and now tries to make his way in. Saucier is now into the pits. Nick Pressy is back out. Jason Duckworth now in the 6th position, will not come into the pits. Drops quickly approaching, but it's still dry for now. Pressy, Schlosser, Valentin, your top 3. Nick Pressy's lead, 4.2 seconds. Liv, Schlosser needs to attack now if he wants to get a good advantage. And it's raining. Rain is coming down.
Turn 1 in sector 1 here.
Here it is. Here it is. So the rain is hit. Right now looking at, is this John Hagan? Nick Pressy, your race leader. Will he be conservative? Will he be aggressive?
It's hard to say. I think the key thing is to not get fooled. For someone like Jason Duckworth, who is about to pull into pit lane, don't let this spook you just yet. Stay and pick another set of dry tires and wait for the crossover. Wait for the lap times to drop to about 1:15. And at that point, you can be more confident that you're getting slowed down enough by the moisture that the wet weather tires have a purpose. Right now, you've got warm tires on the car. You can get them warmed up, even in these slick conditions. You need to make sure to stay the course. That's my opinion on the strategy front.
Jason Duckworth is in, 20 laps to go. Nick Pressy still out on the racetrack. He will circulate the final 2 corners. Well, no, I'm sorry. He's out through the keyhole, it looks like. Now Nick Pressy takes the long straight. And around that kink, Matt Schlosser in 2nd and closing that gap. Rudy Valentin, 9 seconds removed off the top 2. Tucker Sawyer now chasing Eli Sasek as the rain falls.
Bryce Saucier went to wets. Duckworth's gone to wets as well. And you can see Carbon Sienna flies past like Saucier is standing still. Not the call just yet. He's hoping they come in very soon. But for now, it's not the call. You see in the background Christina Ryan. And just look at how quickly she's going to close in here.
Ryan on the reds, now trying to move on to Bryce Saucier, who's on the wet tires, waiting for more rain to come on down. Nick Pressy through the final corner where it's raining a bit heavily compared to the front straight where there's hardly any rain. And now coming into turn 1, Nick Pressy trying to take as much advantage as he can. He will continue to stay out. Christina Ryan working on Bryce Saucier. She's going to try and make light work of the 07.
And you can see how tricky it is, and she just gets past there in a corner where you would normally not be able to make a move. But Bryce is just struggling so much for that grip on these wet weather tires. See how much he has to back off in this corner. At the very bottom of 3rd gear, you're normally flying through that at the top of 3rd. And no one else is being affected quite the same way. So they're having some connection issues as well, it looks like. But right now, just 3 cars on the wet weather tires. It doesn't seem to be the call as you see down towards China Beach. Doesn't seem to be any rain falling right now.
18 laps to go next time by. Nick Pressey leads this race. No spray coming up from the cars yet. Matt Schlosser has closed within 4 seconds to Nick Pressey, trying to get another win this season. So in the final corners and the first few corners, we see rain. When the drivers round the keyhole and head for the long back straight, no rain at all. Looking right now at Tucker Sawyer, Eli Sasek, and who else is that involved there?
That's McDonough a lap down, also on the wet with the tires, followed Saucer, and it just hasn't worked out for them. I will say, Schlosser's closed in. He's only 3.5 back now.
So Nick Pressey being conservative on the dry tires, while Matt Schlosser also on the dry tires, now starting to close that gap. And through that backstretch, now coming into the 4-5 complex, Nick Pressey goes through. Matt Schlosser can see the Brooklyn pilot, and now it's a game of patience.
Yeah, and meanwhile, as we look towards the back of the pack, Mo Perry on those wet tires also went for it, and this is the danger of going too early. You just understand, you don't find the grip you need,
grip.
And into the barrier, needs to come back down pit lane for a repair, and that's probably day done for the number 54.
Eli Sasek, Tucker Sawyer trying to swap spots. The number 9 car in 5th and the number 19 in the 4th position. They crest through the hill, through the long right-hander, approaching the final couple of corners, and the rain starts to fall through this 3rd sector and the 1st sector of the racetrack. 33 laps of the scheduled 49 underway. The gap from 1st to 2nd live is fewer than 4 seconds.
And you see Matt Schlosser on the push to pass right now, using the last of it while there's still grip on the racetrack. Like Pressey knowing not to save it for those wet weather tires. And trying to close in, but Pressey seems to have found some pace as well. And this is the really telling thing. Fastest lap for Pressey, 109.1. His last lap was only 0.2 of a second away. The track is going to continue to fall away, but right now, there is still pace to be found if you're brave.
I'm not brave. Not me. No. So Nick Pressey is braver than I. 3.9 seconds the gap. He will stay out still on these reds. But of course, there's no rain in the keyhole yet. It's still very light rain as the radar goes across the racetrack. Nothing yet to be too concerned with. However, in the next 5 minutes, the cloud cover is going to go from mostly cloudy to overcast, and it's going to rain even harder, presumably. So far, the gamble's paying off for the Brooklyn pilot. It's 4 seconds now from Nick Pressey to Matt Schlosser. George Ward is in. He's going to swap those reds, presumably, for some blue wets.
Yeah, and this still feels a little bit too early. We have Duckworth and McDonough on the wets to compare lap times to. They're in the 114s at best right now. Drivers still in the 109s on those slick tires, but George Ward's gone for it a little bit early. He needs the rain to start downpouring right now for this to work out. He's got to be careful on pit exit. Those are cold tires with not much grip to get up to temperature. We'll see what he's able to do as Craig Yore is going to get past Colin McDonough here, coming into China Beach. And this once again is showing how little grip those wet weather tires have right now.
So, Craig Yore now trying to pull away from Colin McDonough. 1.2 seconds the gap there. We have varied strategies on when is a good time to come in for tires, when is not. The race now in its final 15 circuits. Colin McDonough picking up some gravel on his tires, and Craig Yore will fly away from the American. The Australian has the 11th position all to himself. On board with George Ward now has the wet weather tires, and Jason Duckworth 5 seconds behind him. Elias Flores 5 seconds ahead. So nobody within George Ward's vicinity, and still no spray coming up from the tires at all.
Yeah, it's still too early. This is the thing about 100% rain chance in iRacing. It tells you if there will be rain. It doesn't tell you how heavy the rain will be, and this is a light shower right now.
Liv Tucker Sawyer went for a big skid there. There's only 1.6 seconds between Tucker Sawyer and Eli Sasek, and there's now spray coming out from Tucker Sawyer's rear tires as he crests through that hill, that 19 car. We can't see any spray from here. The spray is going to be on the underside of those tires coming out of that corner. Eli Sasek also on the dry red compound. We're approaching 13, 14 laps to go here, if my math is correct. Now could be the time to make that move where we're starting to see spray from the underside of the tires.
I think you still wait for a couple more laps. I think the fact that some drivers are finding 109s shows that there's still grip to be found. You just maybe have to be a little bit more cautious on the brakes and through the corners. But one thing I do want to mention as we go on board with our race leader here, the aero screen is so tricky in these conditions because there's no way of clearing the water off. There's no wipers. There's no tear off you can take from inside the car. You just have to squint through the raindrops whenever you see them and work out where the next braking zone is. It's the most difficult thing about driving in the wet in this car.
Starting to see streaks behind these tires. Eli Sasek putting the work on Tucker Sawyer, now within 1.2 seconds, but trying not to push too hard, approaching the final 13 laps of competition. Nick Pressey by himself, 5.3 seconds from him down to Matt Schlosser, who's 10 seconds ahead of Rudy Valentin. That position is a foregone conclusion. Sasek, on the other hand, now starting to watch Tucker Sawyer peel away, and Tucker Sawyer might just come through here. He's got 9 seconds between himself and Rudy Valentin, but with a mildly moist racetrack, Sawyer has opened up a great advantage. Now we're looking at George Ward, who's 14 seconds behind Elias Flores and 4.5 seconds ahead of Jason Duckworth. Not any competition yet for George Ward to deal with.
Yeah, and he's on that set of wet weather tires that just aren't working right now. And the other thing to bear in mind, the drivers that pit early, they are
incident for Sienna.
Yeah, we'll have a look back at that just really quickly. The drivers that pit early, they're going to have to make another stop for fuel. If you pit now, you can go to the end on a tank. See, Carmen just gets on the power bit to really maybe get the curb in a little bit. Let's have another look from on board here.
George Ward has decided to come in and come out while we're at it as well. So I'm not sure if George Ward is just going to dry tires or what, but
he's got to dry.
Spray's coming off the car. And George Ward is on that red compound. So brave move for Ward. Well, he tried. You have to applaud the guts. He tried the rain tires. They weren't coming quickly enough. Nick Pressey, on the other hand, still on dry tires, 6.6 seconds ahead of the competition, driving brilliantly, while Eli Sasek and Tucker Sawyer have now closed to within 1.2 seconds. And
I'm going to follow George here, because this is the tricky thing about pitting back onto the slicks. They're not up to temperature. You can see he's having to tiptoe them in a way that a driver like Nicholas Pressey just isn't, because he's been on this tire the whole time. But there's the spray, as you see the driver ahead. That is, I believe, Colin McDonough on the wet weather tires, kicking up a lot of spray here. But the lap times are falling away. Now 2.5 seconds off his best time last time by. And I think, unfortunately for George Ward, right as he's gone back onto the slick tires, we're getting towards the crossover. It's not quite yet. It's maybe in a lap or two. But I think those wet tires are going to come into play before we get to the end of this one. Tucker Sawyer thinks it's now, in fact. Tucker Sawyer's in. Eli Sasek is in. Ascent Racing go to the wet weather tires. They're going to be racing on pit exit. And Tucker Sawyer gets the nose ahead. But what is the delta going to be to Nicholas Pressey at the front?
Spray now coming off the tires, and the two cars exiting pit lane, nose to tail. 3 more in. Carmen Sienna, Christina Ryan, Elias Flores. Spray coming up from the cars. We'll see just how far they make it.
Pressey stays out. Pressey stays out, but it's a 114. This is the crossover. In.
In.
Pressey's extended for one more, but this is going to be a treacherous lap. I think it's the time to pit. You can get away with it, but he's got to be so careful to not loop the car here and get it back towards the end of the race. You can see Tucker Sawyer. I mean, it doesn't look comfortable on the wet, but they're finding grip.
Nick Pressey down that back straight. Spray coming off that race car. Matt Schlosser is out. Nick Pressey doesn't need to push Liv. He's got a 30-second advantage.
Well, you say that, but Matt Schlosser could be gaining time every single second on these tires right now. Pressey needs to get back around, needs to pit this time, but he needs to keep the car in one piece on the way in.
32 seconds the gap. Meanwhile, Tucker Sawyer and Eli Sasek not yet fighting like madmen. 3/10 the gap as Eli Sasek moves into the 4th position. Nick Pressey trying not to break the race car by his lonesome there. He's on his way towards the pits. He surely has to come in for the wet tires, and he will. So the leader is in. Game on for Matt Schlosser.
Yeah, we'll see where the 0-4 cycles here. We'll keep an eye on the battle between Sawyer and Sasek, but it's not easy to overtake in these conditions. You can barely see when you're following another car. I mean, just have a look at this from onboard Sasek. It's not comfortable.
Nick Pressey motionless in the pits right now. Here comes Matt Schlosser. Pressey is out. He's on wet tires and he's out. Lights are on the BMW pace car, and now we'll see where Pressey comes out ahead of Schlosser. He's got a great advantage. Pressey's in 1 through the keyhole. Matt Schlosser now on the front straight. 4th and 5th, look at that, by 4/10 of a second, half a second now, trying to avoid any sort of contact. And if Pressey can hold on to the race car, Liv, he's going to come away with a 14-second gap to Matt Schlosser.
Yeah, and I mean, it was brave from Pressey to stay out as long as he did. I think a lap earlier could have been the safer option, but he clearly found pace in that last time by, found the additional margin. He's got to get those wets up to temperature now, but he's got such a margin to do it. And Sasek now starting to fall away a little bit from Tucker Sawyer as Jason Duckworth finally has those wet weather tires working. He's got them warmed up, but he's got to stop to mate to the end of this race. A few drivers do as well. Colin McDonough, who went early, they're going to come in for a splash of fuel, and probably just a splash to keep those warm tires on.
Rain's only going to get heavier as the race goes on. It's going to be 8 laps to go next time by. 12 seconds from 1st position to the 2nd position. And now there goes Jason Duckworth. He's gone his way into the pits.
Yeah, needs that additional fuel. May as well take it now. Nicholas Pressey flies by. 8 laps to go. And he's got the tires up to temperature now. Drivers on the flying laps running 118s. We're running 109s in the dry.
7 to go next time by. JD has the wet weather tires and he's back out on the racetrack. So now Nick Pressey with a 13-second gap to Matt Schlosser. Christina Ryan starting to pull away from Carmen Sienna, who gives a slide through the rain. And in these final 7 laps, Liv, this is where it will make or break your race as the rain intensifies.
Yeah, and with the gaps that everyone has, and especially what Sienna has behind to Elias Flores, you've got to consolidate what you have. Don't throw it all away trying to close in to a car ahead that, to be honest, might just have your number anyway. Carmen Sienna's been having too many slides here. I think needs to calm it down a little bit and just make sure she can stay towards the end. And crucially, stay off these curbs inside and outside of turn number 1. It's so treacherous. Carmen tiptoes on the white line. That's a little bit too close for comfort for me.
7 to go this time by. Drivers are taking to the rain better than I expected. Not as much calamity, but of course they've only put on the wet weather tires. So the rain is going to get darker as the race goes on. I don't know if it's going to get lighter before the end of the race. As the radar shows, we're starting to go from blue to green and now to yellow before this one's over. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. I promise you that. 6 to go next time by. Having a look there at what looks like Colin McDonough struggling to get, no, that's Carmen Sienna, forgive me. Carmen Sienna, who's again by herself, but now she's coming up to within 6/10 of Christina Ryan. So Ryan struggling through the rain, Liv.
Yeah, and now under pressure once again from Carmen. See the amount of spray that gets kicked off here. It's not going to be fun from the visor cam of Carmen Sienna, but she's trying to follow as close as possible here to try and get a good run and to try and make a move happen here. It's so difficult to make an overtake, but a whittle from Christina. This could be the opportunity. Carmen will be forced to the outside here into the keyhole. Can she find some grip on the outside line? It's a little bit of a different surface to the inside, and it looks like Christina's going to be able to dominate the mid corner. Carmen on the exit with a huge run.
Down to the keyhole, down the back straight, into 4 and 5. Carmen Sienna tries to take the inside line. She's not going to force the issue. Christina Ryan survives in 6th for now.
And watch to the left-hand side here, out of this corner. There's not quite a patch of standing water on the entrance to that right-hander. But that's, I think, the first place it forms. And it can be so tricky. Christina just can't get any momentum going. They're going to be fighting side by side. And I think Christina might let Carmen go here, realizing she's just going to wreck the car if she tries to push any harder. But holds on for the time being. 5 laps to go next time by for Nicholas Pressy. And we have a brawl on our hands for 6th place.
This is going to be one of the most exciting fights of the race. 5 to go next time by. Chris Ryan with the advantage in 6th. Carmen Sienna trying to chase in that 96 machine. Who's going to survive the rain? Where's the best pass? And look at that. Carmen Sienna goes for a slide, and she keeps it off the tire barrier. And Liv, that's 6th place decided.
Yeah, and luckily didn't get beached on that crest at the side of the racetrack. Let's have another look at this one from on board Carmen Sienna. Such little visibility, tries to throw it around the outside. Maybe a bit too much wheel, a bit too heavy on the throttle, and does a great job reacting, but gives up that fight. Is going to have to settle in for 7th place now and get those tires cleaned up again, because it's not just grass, it's mud that forms on the tires in these conditions.
Back to live pictures. We've got, what, 4 to go next time by. Nick Pressy in full control of this event. 14 seconds the gap from him. Who's that off the racetrack? That is McDonough, it looks like. It is Colin McDonough in the sticker robot machine. He will, look at that standing water on the racetrack there.
Starting
Colin
to form
just
now.
Yeah, he just wants to bring this thing home in one piece, and this is where I said it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think in the final lap of the race, it's definitely going to be some heavy rain. So for now, it's Pressy, Schlosser, Valentin. Who are we on board with right now in this lonely mess? This is John Hagen. It looks like, or Valentin
right now, and
by his lonesome, by the way.
It's so slit. The shine on the racetrack is so heavy.
3 laps to go. Next time by. 4 seconds from 2nd to 3rd. Last time around, Rudy Valentin was 3 seconds quicker than Matt Schlosser. The quick math says that Rudy Valentin can make the pass for 2nd. We'll see just how close he gets.
Just didn't find the
Last time around, Valentin only 4/10 quicker than Schlosser.
Yeah, and you can see how he was tiptoeing through that 3rd sector. That's where the worst of the standing water is, and where you're asking the most out of the tires, really. A lot of other sections you rely on aerodynamic grip. That's not affected as much by the rain. It's when you need to rely on the mechanical grip of those Firestone tires that standing water can cause you absolute havoc. And it's through this set. Let's have a look once again. Look on the racing line, the puddles that form. You have to cross over them with as smooth of a wheel as possible to not aquaplane out into the grass. I think a narrow entry into that right-hander might be a good idea as the puddle gets worse and worse. Ooh.
3 laps to go at a very... Look at this. Valentin struggling to hold on, but he's within 3.5 seconds to match Schlosser now, so he is coming in. Colin McDonough has also decided he's going to enter pit lane. We'll see for what reason. Maybe to try and get some fresh tires. I'm not sure. Possibly, yeah. Briefly speak to what the rain does for your fuel consumption as well.
It decreases it a little bit, but to be honest, in a lap-limited race, it's not as big of a factor as you would expect. A lot of times you can extend stints in an endurance contest, but that's just a timed race, and each lap just takes so much longer. The fuel consumption doesn't change that much in the wet weather, other than being a little bit more cautious on the throttle as Christina Ryan a bit slow through Thunder Valley, and that invites Carmen Sienna back into the picture here. Just 3 seconds back once again, and looking to try and put more pressure on the number 80.
Two to go next time by. Christina Ryan trying to hold on to the race car. She has a 3 1/4 second advantage to Carmen Sienna, while Matt Schlosser has a 3.3 second advantage to Rudy Valentin that is quickly shrinking. Last time around, Valentin 7/10 quicker than Matt Schlosser. Not enough to overtake, but enough to be there at the end, and Valentin goes off the track, and that is second place done and dusted. And Liv, these are the mistakes that are going to cost you these podium positions.
Yeah, is it just a little bit too much curb here? Yeah, it's not quite on the curb, but there's a puddle that just straightens up the car at aquaplanes, and Valentin had nowhere to try and recover that. Lucky to not find the barrier, but gets it going once again, losing a bunch of time, and now back down into third place. And Tucker Sawyer's putting pressure on now, actually, for that podium position.
White flag coming out next time by Nick Pressey. Well, Nick Pressey, let's take nothing away from Nick Pressey, but sometimes the perfect storm goes to make sure that you don't have any work to do. Nick Pressey driving an incredibly solid race while his rivals could not cope with the changing conditions, and they fall by the wayside. Right now on board with the, what is this? Tucker Sawyer, who is in fourth, trying to take third away from Rudy Valentin. 8/10 the gap between them. Let's see if we can go to some wider shots and just find Valentin's line. Sawyer's there, and Sawyer now has to be careful not to collide with Valentin.
Yeah, this is going to be so tricky. White flag out for Nicholas Pressey now. Tucker Sawyer and Rudy Valentin about to take the white, and you've got to try and force a mistake here from the car ahead, because without that, you don't want to try and go side by side with someone in these conditions. It could throw away your entire race.
So Nick Pressey about halfway through his final lap now around the keyhole, and here go his rivals sitting in third and fourth. So Rudy Valentin, Tucker Sawyer half a second apart. Further on back, Christina Ryan and Carmen Sienna also doing the same type of dance. Valentin goes wide. Sawyer looks to the inside and he can't pull it off. He's got 1 or 2 more chances. Pressey's got off. Nick Pressey's off. He's still moving in one piece. Here comes Schlosser. Pressey's off. Schlosser now coming to make the pass. We need to see Schlosser. We need to see Schlosser. Where is he in relation? There goes the move. Now behind Pressey. On the final lap, Nick Pressey could not make a mistake all day long. He's made the crucial mistake at the worst time through the standing water. A huge spray out the back of the 94. Here comes Schlosser. Pressey's lost it. There goes Schlosser on the last lap.
And I think Pressey got damaged. I think his wheel's all out of alignment here. He's going to try and hold on for second place. He's trying pressure Schlosser into a mistake. Tucker Sawyer's got around for third place here in the final set of corners.
There goes the leader again, Schlosser. Schlosser's going to do it with a last lap mistake. Schlosser's going to win this race. Nick Pressey in second. Tucker Sawyer, one last defense. There goes Valentin with a big slide, and he's going to shake across the line. Now for sixth, Christina Ryan trying to hold off Carmen Sienna, who's 1 second behind. Unofficially, Matt Schlosser wins this race. And Christina Ryan trying to hold on to sixth. Up the crest through the final couple of corners. Carmen Sienna's going to give it everything left. She's going to spin up the crest, and that's going to settle the 6th position. Liv, what a finish to this race.
I cannot believe what I've just seen on the final lap. Shades of J.R. Hildebrand at the 500 winner, and ultimately it is going to be Matt Schlosser getting his second consecutive win in response. Let's have a look at what it was that happened, as we have a crash after the finish here.
Liv, you're not going to believe what happened to Nick Pressey. We'll examine that finish after the crash. I think that's just a lack of discipline after the checkered flag flies, but it's a blink. So it's Elias Flores, if I'm looking at this correctly. Elias Flores in the double 9 coming out of the keyhole has a huge blink. And then coming up to Nick Pressey, Flores is going to just send his race car right into Nick Pressey. Now, I'm riding on board with Elias Flores here. And Flores is not going to Flores is, judging by the braking zone, Flores has no, and again, this is my humble opinion, but Flores has no intention of braking well before that braking zone, because you can see he follows the cones. He's still moving, and so in order of the cones at the 400, 300, and the 200 marker, the wheels are still turning. By the time Flores gets to that 200 marker, the wheels are locked, and you can see it's way too late to make that turn. I'm not sure what was going on in Elias Flores' mind, but that's what cost Nick Pressey the win. Matt Schlosser wins unofficially. Tucker Sawyer will come home in third.
And you can see the left rear suspension destroyed on the 94. That's why Schlosser could slot his way through. Pressey holds on for second, and Flores, I think, just so unsighted by the spray is my only explanation there as to how that happened. But a huge knock to Nicholas Pressey in what is a crucial championship fight. Let's not forget, he still gains points on Tucker Sawyer, but that gap could have been so much wider if he'd taken that race win.
Let's collect our podium constituents. Let's delegate some interviews, and let's find out what happened in what is the most unexpected finish of the 13 we've had so far this season. Fans, don't go anywhere. I am dying to hear Nick Pressey, Matt Schlosser, and Tucker Sawyer's point of view. We'll be back in a moment. On the podium with our top three after a thrilling, and I mean thrilling race. Not for the first 48 laps, but for the final half a lap. For Matt Schlosser. Matt, I think that's your second victory this season off of an Elias Flores RKO on Nick Pressey. Describe that final half lap for us.
Yeah, I was just trying to finish the lap and make sure I brought it home in second place. The track was just getting wetter and wetter. There's no visibility through the aero screen. I hope they invent some type of wiper for it. But yeah, all of a sudden I saw a yellow flag, and I checked my relative, and I saw Nick was only a couple seconds ahead. Saw I had damage, so probably the least pleasure I've ever had taking the win from someone on the last lap. He obviously deserved it and got taken out by a freak thing. So I guess that's racing being cruel, but yeah, here I am.
I mean, that's sometimes she goes and sometimes she doesn't. What's the line from The Big Lebowski? Sometimes you eat the bear and sometimes the bear eats you. This time, my friend, you ate the bear. So we're going to see you go for 3 wins this season next week at Michigan. How are you tuned for big 2 mile ovals?
I'll have to see how it goes. You know, there's obviously a lot of tactics going on there with the draft and clean air and dirty air. So I'm going to have to do my best with that. But, it's looking forward to it. I'm excited to race Indy cars in Michigan. It's always a good time. So yeah, hopefully can put a good race together there and see how it goes. So yeah.
Congratulations on that unexpected victory, but I'm sure you'll take it anyway, Matt. Liv, you've got tonight's silver medalist, Brooklyn's Nick Pressey.
I sure do. And Nick, I'm sure the emotions are pretty heavy right now. Just talk us through, especially that final stint as the rain started to hit, but then, of course, that incident in the final lap. Talk us through how you're feeling right now.
I'm inconsolable. Honestly, that hospital bed I was in last week starting to look good. It's just, I don't know, June was a very rough month because, I had to fight through all sorts of hell just to get the car on the track week after week. The problems are finally gone, and have the race of my life. I did everything right. I hadn't turned a single wheel wrong. It's and 99% of the time when you have the race, I do. You end up in victory lane. You end up winning. I know Elias didn't mean it. He's a good guy, but that it hurts. It hurts knowing what the situation is on the last lap and how it turned out, because I don't know, it's just, what do you even say about this? What do I even take away from this?
Yeah, I mean, you drove a fantastic race the whole way. You nailed the strategy call. We were talking about it up in the booth, but patient on going to those wet weather tires, and you were driving so well on them. Yeah, I'm sorry that it ended that way, but it is still a gain in points from Toto. I know it's not what you were looking for out of this one. And of course, heading into next week at Michigan, a strong track for the team. What's your process to try and bounce back and take this and use it as fuel heading into the US 500?
I don't know. It's you're right that Michigan's a good track for us. Bryce's last race of the season is actually going to be at Michigan, so we're hoping to send him off with something really special to remember next week before he has to fulfill other obligations for the rest of the season. I hope I win next week. It's a crown jewel. That's important, because I hope you can understand my loss of words.
Yeah, no. We'll let you recover from that one. If you've got anything to say to the fans at home, of course, before you head out, feel free. But I understand if you can't find that right now.
No. Do want to thank Bryce though. He lost his connection midway through. Decided he would be our meteorologist for the rest of the session. Was instrumental in getting me instrumental in getting me the right strategy call. So
Right.
I owe a lot to him for even being in that position.
Let's hope for some more good teamwork next week. I wish you the very best in that one. We'll see you next time out.
Thank you.
That was Nicholas Pressey, unfortunate second place finisher after dominating all race long. Rick James is with our final podium finisher, Tucker Sawyer, in the number 19 for Ascent Racing.
Dr. Sawyer, the rain got to you a couple of times. I honestly think you had more trouble in the wet weather than you did in the dry weather than you had in the wet weather, but you managed to come home with a third place finish despite calamity happening through you and all around you. Did you have a good time?
No. I love rain. I love driving in the rain. I was the fastest guy in the rain. It was fun. I wish the race had more laps, but the dry was terrible. for me. I spun. I don't know what lap it was. It was one of the first 10 laps, something like that. And then my wheel disconnected, so I had to pull off the track and reset it. So I lost position to that. But yeah, the rain was definitely like the thing I was looking forward to, because I am probably the fastest driver in rain here. So yeah, so much fun. I got the podium. So.
A fantastic drive in rain there. Congratulations on the bronze medal. Can we expect to see Michigan next week?
I'd like to say yes. I don't know. I've never. I was going to say I've never driven car in Michigan, but I have a while ago. I'll have to just do some practice, see how it goes. I like to get my first full podium at Michigan. It'd be fun. It's a home race for instant racing, so it'd be nice for one of us to be up there. We'll see when that comes.
We'll see what happens in a week's time. Congratulations on third.
Yeah, thank you.
Liv Hayward, let's see if we can pull up some results, and let's run through our running order here, starting obviously with our race winner, Matt Schlosser, Nick Pressey in second, Tucker Sawyer in third. Crazy podium.
Yeah, all so well deserving there. Just maybe not the order we would have expected, but Matt has been on a tear ever since he set foot here. Well deserving of taking another win in whatever circumstances come. Of course, Pressey in second, Sawyer third, Valentin in fourth after that late race battle, and Eli Sasek, the only driver within 45 seconds of the race lead after that point, in fifth place. Ryan beat Sienna in that duel for the final spot on the lead lap, and then George Ward, Jason Duckworth, both drivers, I'd say missing up the strategy call and falling down the wayside. Elias Flores, of course, in that controversial last lap incident, will come home 10th ahead of Bren Roberts, Colin McDonough and Craig Yore, all 1 lap down, or 2 laps down, I should say. Evan Eiserman, your final finisher, 3 laps down. And then Mo Perry, Bryce Saucier, John Hayden, and Jesse Francisco, your 4 retirements from tonight's race at Ohio.
Well, that does it. After a soaked final 5 laps that turned this race on its head. We're not going to have any race next week at Michigan, but we're going to have blistering speeds and some ridiculous high-speed passing. So come have more fun with us in a week's time. For Liv Hayward, I'm Rick James. Until that next race, everybody, please stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you all around the corner